It's 2024 and the Switch 2 rumours are stronger than ever. All you have to do is have a scroll through Twitter and you'll be able to find what the Switch 2 is allegedly going to look like, what the internal specs are, and even what kind of price range we can expect it to be at. But obviously you need to take these with a pinch of salt, as they might not actually be true. But with there being so many competitor handhelds coming out left, right and centre, and with the Switch most definitely beginning to show its age, I do think 2024 could be the year that we see a Switch 2. So here is everything I want to see when Nintendo finally announce the Switch 2. Consider this my wish list for new specs and new hardware. Now, my first big hope is that the leaks are in fact right, and the next generation of Nintendo Switch console will just be the Switch 2. Because this is Nintendo, and you can never be too sure that they will take something that was successful and continue with it. Yeah, the Wii U, I'm looking at you. Now, this isn't to say that I expect the Switch 2 to look identical to the Nintendo Switch, but I want the concept to at least be the same. A system which you can play in handheld and then dock and play like a console. My only hope is that Nintendo don't decide to innovate, as they've been a little bit hit or miss with their innovations in the past. Like, for example, I didn't care for the 3D feature of the 3DS. The Wii U had a number of different faults, the biggest one being the fact that I couldn't take the controller to the toilet and still play games. And then you of course have these types of things. So my hope is that Nintendo will just kind of see that the Switch worked for what it is and they don't add in something wild. If they do decide to innovate, I really think it will be in VR. A lot of people were expecting there to be VR capabilities for the Switch, especially when the OLED screen was announced. So maybe those rumors were true, but they realized they couldn't do that with the Switch and they're going to do that with the Switch 2 instead. And as cool as that will be, I get incredibly motion sick, so I'm not sure that side of gaming is for me. Now, despite the fact that I want a lot of things in the Switch 2 to be just like the Nintendo Switch, there are a number of different things I would love to see be changed. Now, I think by far the most requested feature for the Switch 2 is going to be backwards compatibility. They managed to get away with it when it came to the Switch for a few different reasons, with both the 3DS and the Wii U utilizing two screens, meaning that it's not the most simple thing to bring directly over to the Switch. And many of the Wii U games wound up getting ported to the Switch and sold for basically full price. But I don't think they'll be able to get away with doing that when it comes to the Switch 2, because I will definitely not be paying full price for a simple port of a game I owned on this. One thing that will be interesting though, especially if this is backwards compatible, is if some of the indies that run really badly on this wind up playing better on the Switch 2. Now, I think the biggest and most obvious change when it comes to the Switch versus the Switch 2 is the thing it needs the most, and that is more power. I think it's fair to say this late on in the life cycle that a lot of indie games are really struggling to put their games on the Switch. And this can clearly be seen by the fact that games are arriving on the Steam Deck fully optimized months before they arrive on the Switch. And some games don't even make it to the Switch whatsoever. And considering the fact that the Steam Deck was released nearly 2 years ago, it might not be that much of a stretch to think that the Switch 2 might be somewhere close, if not more powerful than it. Although I will say, I definitely hope they remain lighter and smaller than the Steam Deck currently is, because it's still just a little bit too big and a little bit too heavy for my liking. But that being said, I wouldn't mind if the Switch itself was maybe a tiny bit bigger. Like, I feel like they went overboard with how thin it is. I wouldn't mind it being just a touch on the larger side, especially if that meant it could be more powerful. But I do like how easy this is to take with me. One thing I do, however, think is that the dock could maybe do with a bit of an upgrade, as right now it really is only just a hunk of plastic. And I've heard of this idea before, but some people have even suggested giving it its own internals, which means when you dock the Switch, you could effectively make it even more powerful. Which, you know, given the size of this already and how much of it is just hollow, that's really not too bad an idea. Because although I'm not that bothered about it being 4K, one thing I would love to see with the Switch 2 is that every game could natively run at 60 FPS. On the topic of how the game looks on the Switch, let's talk about the Switch 2's screen. Now, if you're like me and you own an OLED, you'll know how hard it is to go back to the normal Switch after playing this for so long. Because although I didn't think it at first, the OLED screen makes a massive difference. It's brighter, the colours are more vibrant, the screen's bigger, and overall just enhances your handheld experience immensely. And I also felt really bad for the people who bought a normal Switch, and then months later there was this new iteration that just had a better handheld gaming experience. So I really hope that the screen's OLED from the get-go. At the moment, the Switch screen itself is 720p. I don't know if I'd necessarily want to see this up to 1080p with the size the screen is. I'm not sure it'd make all that much difference. But again, I'd love it if games could hold 60 FPS on this resolution. Now, these are all things that I would like to be changed. But let's talk about something that needs to be changed, and that is the Joycons. It's kind of ridiculous when you think about it, that in the first year of the Joycons releasing, there was a known fault with them. And now, 7 years later, people still need to send them in to get replaced because Nintendo never really fixed it. So I think it goes without saying that the Switch 2 most definitely needs to sort these out. Joy-Con drift isn't my only issue with these. Now, I really did like the idea that you could buy a Switch and inherently have 2 controllers with it. However, if I'm being entirely honest, the only time I used a Joy-Con like that was when a game made me. Every other time I had a spare set of full Joy-Cons that I could hand over to someone, a Pro controller or something like that, and I never really found myself using these the way they intended. And that's because they're just not really that comfy. So this might be more of a personal choice, but I kind of hope they ditch that idea and kind of make it enhanced for single player experience. Like, give me back my D-pad like we have on the Pro controller. I miss it dearly when I play this in handheld. If they did prioritize the single player experience as well, that would mean that they could add some kind of ergonomic grip to the back, which means that we don't have to constantly purchase different grips to have a good time playing in handheld as well. Another thing that needs to change on the Switch is the ability to have voice chat or group chat with the Switch itself and not need to go through the really dumb mobile app that they keep on making us use. Although admittedly, I feel like they've started giving up with that as well. Now again, I don't want voice chat to be forced in any way. I don't want it to be like implemented as something you have to use or can use in the likes of Splatoon 3. But one thing I would like to be able to do is if I do choose to play with friends, I don't want to have to get Discord up on my phone because let's be honest, that's what we all do in order to chat with them. So even if they don't give us a native way to chat on the Switch 2, maybe just give us some kind of Discord integration. There's also a few things that I want to see on the Switch 2 that were a thing in previous generation consoles and handhelds that somehow skipped the Switch. Like, for example, one of the biggest ones for me is Street Pass. I really truly miss the magic that was going through an airport with your Street Pass turned on. It just made holidays better. I can't really explain it. If you didn't have a 3DS and you missed out on Street Pass, let's quickly go through what it was. This is where you can have your 3DS in sleep mode, and when you pass someone else, your Miis would travel to each other's devices and could be used in these really cute little mini games. And this was honestly pretty fun no matter where you went, especially if you went to busy cities. But where this truly stood out was either at the airport, where everyone's just sat around waiting, playing games, or when you went to conventions. I remember going to Eurogamer, I think it was, back when I was like 17, and they had a 3DS Street Pass cafe in the middle of the whole thing, which was so much fun. But imagine you could pass like your favorite YouTuber or your favorite content creator and find their Mii in your game. I just think that would be so cool. Also, this might be just a me thing, but I kind of want the microphone to return to the device itself. Not because I want to be able to voice chat through that microphone, because I think it would be awful, but because of the things developers could do with an inbuilt microphone. Like, I remember in one of the Toon Link games, you had a map and it was dusty, and you had to blow on your device to blow the dust off of the map. I also remember the magic that was Nintendogs, and one of the reasons I believe this wasn't released on the Switch is purely because of the lack of a microphone. So I think you could do so many cool voice-controlled, voice-activated puzzle-type things with an inbuilt microphone. The final thing that needs to come to the Switch 2 is the ability to customize your home screen. Now, this was a thing on the 3DS, but for some reason they decided on the Switch that they were just going to give us a plain black or white theme. And the really silly thing is, they gave us the ability to purchase different logos and stuff like that in order to make your icon, but didn't extend this any further on the Switch itself. So hopefully the Switch 2 will actually utilize these features so we can really customize it to make it feel like our device. That is my wish list for the Switch 2. Honestly, I'm just hoping that we're not going to have a Wii U-like situation and that the next console is bigger, better, and more glorious than ever. Let me know what you want to see on the Switch 2 down below, and if you want to see my top 10 games of 2023, click this video here.